Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus channel. My Catalana, I'm Jenna Cottrell. First off, right off the bat, be sure to like and subscribe. We always appreciate all the love that we get. Let's start with today. The Bills starting their second week of training camp. Who were some guys that caught your eye at practice?
There's no quarterback controversy.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Josh Allen looked great, but I want to talk about Mitchell Trebrisky, the backup quarterback. He's looked good. Not only has he looked good, I think he's the kind of guy they want in that room.
Yes.
50-plus starts in the league. Look, was he the franchise guy for the Bears? He never quite got there.
Yeah.
He's still a relatively young player, only a year in the league longer than Josh Allen. But to have a backup with that kind of experience who appears to be picking up this offense really well,
Yeah.
I think it's a big plus. I think in what we've been able to see out of him, Jenna, I think he looks pretty good.
I agree, and we know that a lot of fans were sad to see Matt Barkley leave after the Bills let him walk this past offseason, but Mitchell Trebrisky brings that element, like you said, that experience. And, you know, if anything were to happen, obviously knock on the tree behind us, but if anything were to happen, it's nice to have a guy that you know has seen the reps. And Mitchell Trebrisky had a fantastic throw today to another guy that caught our eye, Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah, it was. Right down the seam, 50 yards, touchdown. And first you always look and say, which quarterback threw the ball?
Yes.
And it was number 10. And then Hodgins, not forgotten about. I think that's an unfair thing to say because he never really got a chance last year. He got injured, wasn't around. 6th round draft pick. But man, he's trying to make a name for himself in this room, and this is a loaded wide receiver position.
I mean, you think about it. The Bills just drafted him last year. That's a guy that you would expect to be making the roster, but because of the circumstances, him being out last year, and just how stacked that room is, the depth that they have at that position, he's trying to make every play he can. Today, though, that flash, nice catch from him.
Yeah.
You know the Bills love to see that. And you know he's got to make continual plays like that to be sought out.
Yeah, because look at who he's competing with too, right? Because it's only so many roster spots on the regular roster.
Yeah.
And look, if he flashes a lot and plays in these preseason games, it sounds easy to say, put him on the practice squad. Remember this, you got to cut the guy and then another team can't pick him up.
Yeah.
And then you can get him on the practice squad. So look, there's a lot of camp and a lot of preseason left to be played, but you got Aaron Rodgers' favorite player, Jake Kumaro, on this roster. You know, Isaiah McKenzie keeps making plays. Like, first you got to be the better Isaiah on the team, and then you got to prove you can get a roster spot. And I think that's kind of interesting. But you made a good point. You get those 50-yard touchdown plays, the coaches see that.
And the sidelines, everyone was like, ooh, that was a nice catch. That's when you know there's a moment like that at camp, when you can hear kind of everything else stop, and you're like, oh, who's that?
Yeah.
Oh, who is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I was thinking about? It was when Micah Hyde said, I don't learn guys' names until they make a play.
Today.
Everybody on the roster is going, Isaiah Hodgins. I know it's year 2, but he made a play.
But, I mean, with the way last year went for him, we really didn't see anything from him on the field. So to have him have a play like that, you know, the Bills are enticed and ready to see stuff like that. Another guy, or let's do a couple.
Together.
I was going to say, together, because this seems like it's going to be, once again, running back by committee this year. We have Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. Two guys that are experienced in terms of they played in this offense last year. Obviously, Devin Singletary, a year older than Zach Moss. But what do you make of them as they enter the season?
You know, I go back to Hyde. I remember asking Hyde, is it Hyde and Poyer or Poyer and Hyde? Right? Because they both play.
Yeah,
they play all
fair.
the time. They're a team. It's different at the running back position because 99% of the time there's only one back on the field. But in terms of who's going to get that number 1 spot? Is it going to make a difference? It's a competition to get those snaps. And I do understand they are teammates. I'm sure they're friends, friendly, whatever level, right? But they are competing. They're competing for spots. They're also competing maybe who's going to get paid next, if that's the case.
That's how I feel with Dan Fates.
Are you winning this right now?
I think I'm winning.
Wow. Dan, if you're watching to this point, Dan,
be sure to like and subscribe.
But it really is something to see this because, look, this is not a running team, but we always talk about it, right? The idea of who's ahead of who. Singletary came in great shape, but I got to tell you, when Daboll was talking today, he likes what he sees out of Zach Moss, too.
Yeah, and we did talk to Brian Daboll today, and I thought it was interesting because we try and glean anything we can out of talking to the coordinators. Who do you like? What have you seen? All of this. Brian Daboll, keeping it as simple as possible, what he wants to see out of his running backs is positive yardage and blocking. And it's like, you know what? That's a classic Brian Daboll answer. Hat tip to him for keeping it like that. But that's a real thing because you know that this is going to be a competition that we talk about. throughout the season.
Yeah, and it might be week to week. And I know that's not what a lot of, they want somebody to win,
Yes.
but I keep saying this about this position, Jenna. This doesn't mean one guy's staying and one guy's out.
No, yeah.
Like, I do not see that happening. While they don't prioritize the running game, man, you better have backs. You better have backs that know this offense. And guess what? When they say protecting, they're talking about protecting 17 back there.
Yep.
Yeah, when somebody's coming and a back's got to step up and make a block, you better have a guy they can trust in that backfield to make those plays. A lot of times fans talk about, like Williams, the undrafted running back. They got to be able to trust him when Josh Allen is in there at quarterback, not just to catch the ball and to make a run. So that's an important part. So the reason I bring this up is, yes, there's competition for snaps, but we saw it last year. Some games it was Moss. Some games it was Singletary. Some games start with one guy getting more and then it turns into the other one.
Yeah.
Sometimes a guy fumbles like Moss did in the end zone and then he sits and watches for a while.
Yeah.
So it's a good competition. I think it's a healthy one, but I don't think we're ever going to see a real clear-cut winner.
Because this is also a passing offense.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of guys, when you talk about their time in the league, they like to get those carries. They like to build up, have a little bit of rhythm. I don't know if we're going to see that. I don't expect to this year.
I like Singletary's answer about that. Somebody said it's a limited amount of carries. And he said, hey, in this league, even if you get a lot of carries, you better produce. And producing isn't always your fantasy football team. I would never draft early either one of these running backs in a fantasy league. I don't think either one is going to put up big numbers for this team. I'm not a fantasy football expert, but at some point you want to take one of them. But my point is, what they're doing and doing well doesn't always equate to stats. That's the point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. One other guy that I did want to mention, Spencer Brown, the Bills' offensive lineman. He's a rookie this season. He's someone that's been getting a little bit more time in because Deion Dawkins has been out. He's dealing with a COVID diagnosis. We're not sure the extent of that. But regardless, we get to see a rookie like Spencer Brown. What has kind of jumped out off the page for you about him, other than, the obvious?
He's 11 feet tall.
And with the bubble helmets that they're wearing to protect their, make sure they're safe.
Well, so people don't, it's for the constant hits.
Yes.
And Mitch Morris mentioned it today. We'll get back to Spencer Brown, but Mitch Morris mentioned, he's like, God, we did a lot of stuff. There was a lot of contact, and I didn't really feel it. That's great. They won't wear them in the games, but you're cutting down. Think about all the practices, and you're cutting down on those helmets hitting and touching at whatever point and causing problems.
It's huge, but also it makes the linemen look enormous. Like, these guys already are built like refrigerators, and then you add on an extra, how much do you think?
That's another 5 inches, right? And Spencer Brown is a big dude, but he's there at left. And look, he's built like a tackle. Big, strong. And he's getting these reps early. And I asked Morris about it. I go, what do you see when you? And he said, I see guys that are light years ahead of where I was as a rookie. And he gave credit, I think it was credit to Andy Reid, who said, Andy just threw me in there.
Fire,
it's a little different, I think, with Spencer Brown because, the Bills have Deion Dawkins, and he will be back. Yeah. But they want to see what he's got. The dude's going to play a lot in the preseason.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
preseason games are important to guys like this to get those reps. But I think it's interesting. And longtime Bills fans will get a kick out of looking at Spencer Brown, and it says Brown with 79 on the back. Reuben Brown, for years, was wearing that. So you'll see a Bills offensive lineman, albeit a tackle, not a guard, named Brown, wearing number 79.
Yeah. Well,
I know you don't remember Reuben.
No.
Well, you know who Reuben is,
yes,
but yes.
I don't remember, you know what I mean?
I remember all of them.
I didn't even bring up that you've been covering the team for 1,000 years.
I've been in this place a lot of times.
Yes.
In Orchard Park.
Yeah,
yes.
I'll say so. All right.
And not in Austin, Texas.
Don't. Do not. All right.
Nobody's going to Austin, Texas. I'll end with that. Nobody's going to Austin, Texas.
We're not fueling the flames.
No.
All right. Be sure to like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. I know we joke about it, but it honestly does so much for our channel.
And the podcast is up.
Yes.
We do talk a little bit about that and what went on with the stadium stuff if you want to hear that. But Josh Allen and how he's looked, he looks great at the moment. Make sure you check that out. That's anywhere you get a podcast. So if you want the audio version, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeart, anywhere you get it, but also Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.
And I forgot to add, we started an Instagram. So if you check out Buffalo Plus _, you'll see a picture. We post all of our stuff there as well if you want more on your Instagram feed about the Bills, which I'm sure a lot of Bills fans would love that.
you got to avoid us. We're everywhere.
We are everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. For Mike, I'm Jenna. We should probably wrap up here
Yeah.
so we don't scare more people. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks for checking out the Buffalo Plus YouTube page.